Lois Wallace. She's been on the calls, but Lois joined We Make Travel Easy as a travel designer and planner on May 1st. So even though this isn't the best time, Lois said, I'm coming on board. And it gives us a lot of times to kind of connect and get things going. So when all of you guys are ready to travel again, you know, we'll be there, and we got more hands on deck. So we're real excited and ready to go when the time is right for you. So Lois, do you want to say something?
Well, just that I'm so happy to be with Sandy.
Okay.
And we make travel easy.
Yeah. And Lois has, I mean, Lois is a very experienced travel designer, but she's also has a real expertise in the UK. So if you've got any interest in Scotland, Ireland, England, she is really, really your girl. And as well as the rest of the world, like the rest of us, but she's really got a niche there, and has done some fabulous trips for people who are going back and looking at their heritage in that part of the world. It's really, really wonderful.
Yes, that's what comes from being a Wallace.
Aha, aha.
And I was thinking we couldn't send the bottles, but maybe we should do a Scotch tasting one.
Hey, I'm all up for that. Single malt Scotch is right after wine. Okay, raise your hand. We're going
there.
All right. We'll do that. We could also do tequila too. You know, that would be fun. So, all right, Ginger, I love you, Ginger.
So Lois, my grandfather's name was William Wallace Fox.
Yeah.
So, and my great grandmother was an Armstrong. So from the Scottish Irish border, and on the other side I was a Harrell, which is right up there in the British Isles.
All right.
Great.
All right. Well, great. Welcome, Lois, and everybody. Now you get to know Lois, part of our team. Okay, so tonight.
Scotch tasting.
I'm sorry, what?
I just did a Scotch tasting. I'm in a Scotch group, and this guy put together
Warren, you're
23 Scotches that we drank the other night, all single malt.
Can you set us up for a Scotch tasting?
No. We can't do.
Okay.
Besides
Right.
which, who can it's hard enough to drink 2 bottles of wine by myself in an evening. 16 bottles of Scotch by myself.
Oh, but somebody's got to do it, Warren. I got my thing.
No, there's plenty of Scotch back here.
Oh my God.
Now, Warren,
Yeah, my gosh, Warren.
he's multi-talented. Warren, you go, man.
Well, after watching TV this afternoon, I think I can drink a whole case of Scotch. But
We all can.
All right. Anyway, well, welcome. Tonight we're going to Australia, which is really, really exciting. And I chose Australia basically because, I mean, they got a really hard time between all the brush fires, and just when they were coming back from the brush fires, COVID-19 hit. So I think we need to give our friends from down under a little bit of love. And so I'm going to play a little welcome video from them to us, and then we'll kind of get started.
A funny thing happened on the way home as we closed our doors and explored smaller worlds. We looked out through the window and realised we missed you, maybe more than ever on toast. Now, that may not be true, but we'll tell you what is. Staying connected to mates, it's just what we do. So, look, there's a quokka, Ruse running amok, furry friends high in trees and green shoots, popping up. That list. What else is going on? Well, the winds are yet sweeter. The grass is getting greener. Uluru is having a rest. The stars are still twinkling. Sun showers are sprinkling. The fruit is getting fat. The views are repainted. The horizon much lighter. There's plenty to like. There's plenty that's brighter. So that's news for now. Stuff that makes you feel better. There's a lot more to share to bring us closer than ever. With love from us.
So, and I mean, a country is also a continent. It's pretty amazing. So what I want to do is introduce you.
There's one sneaky dating tactic.
Oops.
You must absolutely.
Oops. Sorry, it kept going on my side here. So anyway, I want to introduce the, I don't know if I've used this term before, DMC. It stands for Destination Management Company. And these are the in-country experts, just like Sandy Sale last week from Hills of Africa. She's my DMC for Africa that knows all things Africa. And tonight we're going to meet Paul Groves-Berry from Southern Crossings, which is a DMC for Australia and New Zealand. They started in New Zealand with a very special niche. They did fishing trips for US citizens who wanted to go to New Zealand to experience the gorgeous nature and wonderful and do very specialized fishing trips. And about 20 years ago, they decided to expand into Australia. So now they are probably one of the top luxury destination management companies for Australia and New Zealand. They are Virtuoso, and if those of you who know what Virtuoso is, it's very high level, and we get lots of nice extra goodies when we book with Virtuoso. Our host tonight and our friend from Down Under is Paul Groves-Berry, and he's a born and bred Australian. He's been in travel for almost 20 years. He started out as a tour guide, both in the UK and Europe, and started moving into more management kind of positions. And he joined Southern Crossings about 3 years ago, and he is now in charge with the director of Southern Crossings, Stuart Riggs, of a team of about 50 people. I'm sorry, 15 people that really know every inch of this country and know some incredible special experiences where you'll see some fabulous photos of coming up. So I'm going to turn this over to Paul. And Paul, welcome. It's 10 o'clock in the morning in Australia tomorrow. So, but Paul is being a good sport and he's going to drink now. And then I guess he'll finish the bottle with his wife and tonight for dinner. So Paul, welcome. Cheers. What do you say? Hi,
Thank you,
mate.
Sandy. Thank you. G'day. First of all, I do want to start actually after the response I got last week when I said I wasn't drinking to prove that I do actually have both of the bottles. Funnily enough, I actually bought the Cabernet Sauvignon because I sort of prefer red, and then just by chance yesterday I found the Chardonnay in our fridge. My wife had it separately somehow, and it was literally in our fridge, so I felt like I had to join in and do both today now. All right. Well, thank you, Sandy, and thanks everyone for joining. I hope I can share a little bit about Australia and why I think it's such a great destination. And I think first and foremost, particularly for you folks that are on the west coast of the US, it's important to note that it's just one quick and easy flight away. 14 hours might seem like a long time for you, but for us in Australia, it's sometimes half the trip that we need to fly if we want to go to somewhere like the UK or Europe. But I think the best way, of course, is to show you a few photos and talk to you just a little bit about our destination so that you can hopefully get excited about the great things to see and do here. So let me share my screen and I'll talk you through a few little things. Okay, so as Sandy said, Southern Crossings, we've been operating in this area for about 20 years and in New Zealand for more than 30 years. We're a DMC, so we look after people coming over, and it's literally a touchdown to takeoff service. So the minute that you arrive, we have someone there waiting for you to take you and, to pick you up and take you to your hotel. And basically from that point onwards, we look after things the whole way to make sure that you have an exceptionally good and easy holiday here. And Australia is an easy destination. It's one flight. We have, obviously we speak English as our first language. It's a really nice and easy destination for people out of the US to come and visit. And the bonus is, of course, that our seasons are completely opposite to yours. So if you want a winter getaway, you can come down here, down under, and it's nice and warm. What we do is we will literally tailor an itinerary to your interests and needs. So whether it's wine, whether it's nature, whether it's food experiences, culture, we pretty much tailor the itinerary to, based upon the brief that Sandy and her team would give us. We work with a range of 4- and 5-star accommodation options. you know, we have specialized private guides that can take you to show you and tick off the boxes in terms of your interests. And as Sandy mentioned, we're part of Virtuoso, so that means you get those value-added inclusions along the way. One question that people ask, and I just touched on this, is when's a good time to travel? And our summer and your winter are complementary. So, you know, the busiest times of the year for travel in Australia is our summer, which is December, Jan and Feb. And that's great for you because it's cold sometimes where you are and you can come down here and have some warm weather. And that's the best time to visit the southern destinations in Australia. So places like Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Kangaroo Island, Tasmania, that's the right time to visit. As Sandy said, we're a continent and we have a very, very big amount of land and therefore different conditions. So the north of Australia, the northern part, northern Queensland, what we call the Northern Territory, during those summer months, it's too hot to travel there. It's a tropical destination. So what that does mean though is in the middle of the year, as you can see there, someone swimming on the Great Barrier Reef, it's a great time to come and visit that northern part of Australia where the weather would still be, even in the middle of our so-called winter up there, probably in the 80s most of the time. So pretty nice conditions to get out and explore and swim and beach and so on. Springtime, sort of September, October, November is actually a really great time to come if you want to combine some of those two areas. So if you want to see our cities like Sydney and Melbourne, but also go up north to the Reef or to the Northern Territory, that's a good time to do both. So as you can see on those photos there, you know, we've got a huge range of things that you can see and do, from animal experiences, incredible beaches, cultural attractions, golf, sporting events. You know, there's literally something to cater to everyone's needs here. I thought I'd just talk you through a couple of key destinations and some unique experiences that you can do. And then, you know, that's enough. Obviously, you've got wine to drink. So Sydney is the city where I live. This is our sort of beautiful harbourside city. You can see there the bridge, the Opera House. We always recommend that people get out and do a cruise on the harbour while they're here. And for those more active, you know, you've got the option to do the bridge climb or, you know, go on a walking tour along some of the beautiful beaches and some great food and wine experiences. Melbourne is actually our other big city. It's actually the city where I grew up. I live in Sydney now, but it's quite a different city from Sydney, interestingly. It's more famous for its sort of culture and art scene. Got a very, very funky food and wine scene with lots of, you know, cool brands that have come out of there. Lots of, you know, boutique clothing stores and things. So, and it also is the springboard for some really amazing day trips that you can do. Places like the Great Ocean Road that you might have heard of, or the Yarra Valley for its wineries. The Blue Mountains is another destination that's always worth having on the map. It's probably our biggest regional destination outside of those two cities. Just incredible scenery and only about an hour and a half to 2 hours out of Sydney itself. So definitely doable on a day trip. And of course, the things that people look for when they come here, we can arrange some really incredible exclusive wildlife experiences. Things like this, where you're actually going to a sanctuary where you can help koalas that you know, have been injured, which they sometimes get hit by cars or obviously impacted by bushfires and so on. The Great Barrier Reef is inevitably something that's on many people's list when they come here. This is actually an incredible new experience that was opened just last year in an area called the Whitsundays. So you might have heard of that area. It's called the Journey to the Heart. So it's actually a standing still, like a permanently located fixture. And basically what you do is you do a day trip where you take a helicopter ride out across the Great Barrier Reef, which is a great way to see obviously how big it is and how it got the name Great Barrier Reef. You then land onto that pontoon and you have little canoes that you can do some canoeing with. You go on a little boat cruise on a glass bottom boat to see the reef, and you can obviously also do some snorkeling and things. Now, the great thing about that experience is it's limited to 6 people at any time. So if you go on there, it's very exclusive, and you're not going to be with the big crowds of people that are obviously going out to the reef on big boats and so on. Some other experiences we can do. This is one I did a couple of years ago, where you can actually meet with an Indigenous Australian, one of our Aboriginal people, and they teach you how they hunt using their traditional methods. So this is a group of people going out with some spears to catch some mud crabs. So you walk out through the mud flats and try and catch the crabs. It's actually harder than you think it is, but the benefit is when you catch some, you get to go back and cook them and eat them fresh, straight from the water. So that's a pretty unique way to learn about our Indigenous heritage. The Field of Lights is this is a photo here. This is an art installation with 50,000 light bulbs that are set up in the desert near to Ayers Rock. So this was set up a few years ago temporarily. It's now been indefinitely extended because it was such a popular thing. And what it contrasts with is Ayers Rock. And I was telling Sandy just the other day that something that blows your mind when you go to a destination like Ayers Rock is that Ayers Rock itself is actually about 3 times as tall as the Eiffel Tower. So people often wonder why, it's so a popular destination to go to. But imagine, a pretty much arid desert landscape with a few trees and not much in terms of hills or mountains, and then just out in the middle of it, this, I think it's about 2,700 feet high. So it's really quite an incredible, monolith that's out in the middle of the desert. So that's why people head out there. Food and wine experiences, of course, we can do those. We're tasting wines today from the Margaret River area, which is in Western Australia. And there's some great things you can do there. Even at the Vassar Felix Winery, they have some ultimate winery experiences where you can do behind the scenes. You can also do hikes where you hike around the area and then stop and have a beautiful lunch with matching wines. There's a whole range of different food and wine experiences in WA. South Australia is probably our most famous region for wine. You would have heard of some of our brands such as Penfolds and areas such as the Barossa Valley, which are famous for their wines. This is a really cool one in Tasmania. This is an experience you do when you stay at one of the luxury lodges there, and you actually go out and into a oyster farm, learn how they farm the oysters, and then you put on these big rubber waders and walk out into the water, and the host will actually then take some oysters straight from the water, put them onto the table there with the tablecloth, and serve them up with some fresh, sparkling local wine. So a pretty unique and definitely incredible experience. And then just, this is an image of some cultural experiences that you can do. Melbourne, like I was saying, is a bit more of that cultural destination. This is actually a street art mural, so graffiti, but nice. And there's a whole set of laneways in Melbourne where they allow street artists to do works like this. It's not against the law. There's designated areas where they can do that. So we can, for example, arrange a guided tour where you'll actually spend some time with one of the street artists who will take you around and talk to you how about they do the work. And even if if you've got if you're doing a family trip with some grandkids or children, we can even arrange things where you can do a lesson. And in fact, for the really high end, do a piece of street art on the wall and actually leave it there with a street artist. So it's pretty cool. There's some amazing stuff to see and do. I thought I'd throw out one unique accommodation that just sort of gives you an example of the great things that we can do. And it works well because it's connected with wine. This is on a winery out of Melbourne, about an hour out of Melbourne. It's called the Jackalope Hotel. The jackalope is a mythical creature from North America, actually. It was a sort of combined antelope and jackrabbit, which is sort of that sculpture there. And again, by staying there, you can literally stay in the vineyards and do some unique wine tasting experiences and great food and wine. So, thank you for listening. I've tried to rush through, but as you can see, there's some pretty unique and amazing things to see and do. What I might do is just finish by putting on a 1 minute video, which shows you what we can do for you as Sandy said yesterday, if you win the lottery, and you can really live it up when you come to Australia. So I'll do that now, and then we'll be done.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. I'll leave you to
Right.
your wine.
Thank you. So now you know if you, I'm running out and buying lottery tickets, and if your tech company goes public, that's the way to go. Paul, was there supposed to be volume with that? I mean, audio with it?
Yeah, there was. Did you
I
hear it,
know,
or you didn't hear
we
it?
couldn't hear it. No,
Ah,
it's really
okay.
unfortunate. But
I'll
anyway,
send you the link then, and then you
and
know
then,
you could
yeah,
share it with
and I'll
everyone
send it
later
with
if they want.
with
Yeah.
the thank yous, and then you can
Yeah.
kind of listen to it. So, I mean, that's the, but I mean, you don't, that's not the only way to see Australia. I mean, obviously you saw what Paul did before. So, any questions, comments for Paul about Australia and traveling there? All right, so everybody knows, so we'll just sign up. How about we all go as a group?
I have a question. And Paul, I think Sandy said that you were a tour in Europe for a while, and I'm curious about how the 4-star and 5-star hotels compare in Australia to those in Europe.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question, Joan. The 5-star hotels here are really on par with absolutely the sorts of experience that you would get in Italy or France or Greece or whatever. With the 4-star properties here, we aim to work with a select few. It's more in the cities, I guess, that we work with those 4-star properties because there are good options that are well located and of a good quality. But definitely the 4 and 5s, the 5-star for sure, I would say, is just as good as what you would get in Europe. In Europe, yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
This is Michaela. I have a question just to help my brain. How many hours is the flight from like Sydney to Western Australia to Perth, I think, though I'm not so good at my geography.
Yes, it's a good question, Michaela. It's a very long way. It's actually flying from Sydney. It's about 5 hours on a plane to Western Australia. So it's the same sort of concept as flying from East Coast to West Coast of the US.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Anybody else? Any other questions? All right, well, if you have any questions that pop up afterwards, just shoot me an email and we'll get you answers. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this over to Warren. Most of you know him, but in case we have somebody new on the call today, Warren is my partner in crime on these travel and wine tastings. And Warren got into doing this. First it was an interest, then it became a hobby, then it became a passion and an obsession, and he threw up his hands and said, okay, I'm in. And he created this most amazing wine distribution. He's a purveyor of the fine wines. He finds very unique and interesting wines, from the red that you might want to have with pizza at night to Grand Crus that you're going to put in your wine cellar. Warren is just amazing. He's charming, he's interesting, and he really makes tasting wine fun. So I'm going to turn this over to Warren Egnell from Dovan. And Warren, take us to Taste Australia.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. Welcome, everybody. I see some familiar.
Wine, I'm not. She said you don't have to watch the wine part.
So tonight is something really, really special from my perspective. Firstly, I've loved the Antipodean wines for a very, very long time. Australia, New Zealand. Again, last week we talked about South Africa being New World, which is quite ironic, seeing as Babylon's Store was from the 1600s. But the Australian wine history goes back several hundred years as well. And it's a very storied history, and they make terrific wines with great varietals. But the modern Australian wine industry really came of age about 20 years ago. Unfortunately, it just started with those, what my master sommelier friend Peter Neptune calls the jumping colored critter labels, like yellow kangaroo and stuff. So in the beginning, it was mostly Plonk, and they kept the good stuff down there. I think Paul probably drank most of it. But now we're fortunate in that we can get some of the greatest Australian wines here in the United States. And the greatest Australian wines are not just great Australian wines, they're great wines objectively comparable to the best in the whole world. Paul had earlier mentioned Penfolds Grange and others like Henschke Hill of Grace and the Tom Cullity from Vassar Felix, which we're not drinking tonight, but others, for example. These are wines that sell for upwards of $800 a bottle and are on a par with the greatest wines from Bordeaux and Burgundy. So Australia really is a very special place when it comes to wine. And the Margaret River in Western Australia is really interesting. It's a pretty new area. It was first planted by Tom Cullity in 1967. In fact, I'm going to share my screen here and show you the website while I talk it through. So this is Vassar Felix. They began in the late 60s. This is where it is. We're down here in the bottom corner, of Australia. And Tom Cullity planted these vineyards back in 1967, I believe, if we look at the history here. There is Tom Cullity, 1966, when they first planted Cabernet down in the Margaret River, and then moved forward. The first vintage, as you can see here, in 1971. And what was interesting, about that region is they discovered that terroir, the earth, was conducive to making tremendous Cabernet and Chardonnay. And besides the earth, the climat was great, and they have what is critical for wine is what the technical folks call diurnal fluctuation, which I didn't know what the heck that means. And then they said, well, very hot nights and very hot days and very cool nights. So it blows hot and cold, kind of like my golf game. And And that really is what grapes love. It's why the Sonoma coast is great, because it's very hot during the day, and then those ocean breezes come with the Pacific at night and cool things down. And you can see here in the 70s they began to get global accolades. They changed ownership a bit, and then Robert Holmes of Court bought Vassar Felix, and they really expanded the winery. They have a gorgeous restaurant there now. In fact, my friend Mike Martini, the scion of the family of Martini Wines, is actually stuck in the Margaret River right now because he was there a couple months ago on vacation, and now he can't get back. But in any event, they then introduced some unique wines. Heytesbury happens to be their flagship Chardonnay, one of my favorite wines in the whole world, not just in Australia. And as you can see here, they expanded. Hyde Virginia Wilcock, who just a couple years ago was named Australian Winemaker of the Year. And then they released just a few years ago this wine called Tom Cullity, which is the equivalent of their Tête de Cuvée, their top wine. It's a high-end Chardonnay Malbec. And based on that wine and others, they were awarded the New World Winery of the Year. And that Tom Cullity wine was ranked number 4 on Wine Enthusiast's top 100. So anyway, that's enough of talking about Vassar Felix and the wine, but we should taste it. I mean, you probably have seen me I just can't resist this wine. This Chardonnay to me is extraordinary. And what I really, really like about it is, I've never been to Australia, but the wine is so distinctive. And it actually reminds me of Burgundy in a lot of ways. You know, we're all trying to get to that old world style of Burgundy. This wine to me throws me into Meursault territory down in the Côte d'Or in Burgundy for, a third of the cost or a third of the cost. And this wine, just the nose on this wine is just extraordinary. So I hope everyone's been drinking it. I don't know, I'm looking at the tasting notes here, and I get the deep straw green tinge part, but I'm not sure that I get lemon pie crust and croissant and all those kinds of things. But anyway, to me, it's beautiful and fragrant and floral, and what's most important in the mouth, just the warmth of the wine and those mellow tones, but balanced with great acid. I mean, I'm just counting in the back of my head. That's 15, 16, it's a 20-second finish. And this isn't even their top Chardonnay. It's the mid-level Chardonnay. The Heytesbury is extraordinary. It's like Grand Cru Burgundy. So to me, that's the Vassar Felix Chardonnay. The cab is extraordinary because, again, it's very modern in terms of its winemaking style, but it sees oaks and the nose and the flavors, but again, very, very reminiscent of Bordeaux, even of Pauillac. The Tom Cullity, which I referenced before, some friends of mine and I agree that it may be the closest wine I've ever had outside of France that tastes like Mouton Rothschild. Wow. And the wine, that wine is pretty extraordinary. It's not an inexpensive wine at about $165 a bottle, but then Mouton can be $850, $1,500, $2,000 a bottle. And if you're lucky enough to win Sandy's lottery, or she wins the lottery, ask Sandy to buy you a bottle of 1945 Mouton for about $45,000, $50,000, and we'll all come over and drink it.
I win the lottery, we're all going to the winery.
But the interesting thing about this, if you look at the composition on the notes that Sandy sent, it's Cabernet Sauvignon, a little bit of Petit Verdot, and Malbec. So the interesting thing is that most of these Meritages, these Bordeaux-style blends, were Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, etc., but mixed primarily with Merlot. However, they found that with the climate in Western Australia, the problem was, and they're finding this with global warming as well now in France, is the Merlot is ripening much sooner now than the Cab ripen. They used to ripen along the same type of spectrum. So what they found in, because of, Malbec, of course, does very, very well in Argentina. It used to be the predominant grape in Bordeaux in pre-phylloxera times. But what they found is the Malbec ripens at the same time as the cab. So now they can harvest them together, blend them together instead of staggering it, and they get a much, much more balanced wine, a wine of tremendous complexity and interest. This wine deserves some food. And this morning I was thinking lamb would be good. And I went and I clicked on the recipe, and the first line in the recipe says, get the lamb, prepare for 1 week. And that was the end of tonight's recipe for me. But I'll try it another time for sure. But I definitely think that a nice hearty meat dish with this red wine would be, absolutely fantastic. Certainly the Chardonnay and that oyster bed and with that lobster and everything would be pretty extraordinary. But I'm still trying to figure out light peppermint. With a light peppermint I get, but I'm trying to find the ironstone, and it's very strange to me some of the notes that people put on wine. I read one the other day that had a flint of gunpowder. So, but I think everyone's trying to get too much into wine. For me, I'm a little bit more layperson in terms of my evaluation. My nose isn't as sophisticated as a master somm, but definitely I get that flintiness, that essence of terroir in the wine, the earthiness, and then just the flavor profile. It just dances on your tongue. This is definitely not your father's Oldsmobile when it comes to red wine. This is not a Napa cab by any stretch of the imagination. It doesn't have that high alcohol. It's only 14% alcohol as opposed to 16 or 15, 16 in Napa wines. It's not that big fruit-forward cherry bomb. But again, that's not my personal favorite style of wine. This is more my personal favorite style of wine. And anyway, that's enough from me. I'd love to hear what people think about the wine, or any questions about Vassar Felix and the Margaret River wineries. The Ewan is down there. It's a famous one as well. They have the Art Series wines. But, Paul was right. The Barossa Valley is fantastic for big reds. They're making wines in, all over that southeastern part of Australia, including tremendous blends of Viogniers and Rieslings. The QC Vale's a winery down there that makes a Riesling that is comparable to the Mosel and parts of Germany and Austria that are just extraordinary. Tasmania is one of the greatest wine producing places in the world. Sean Smith and Tolpuddle from Tasmania are great. And they make a sparkling wine. There's a fantastic winery in Tasmania called Jansz, Jansz. And they make sparkling wines in the method champenoise, in the champagne style. In fact, the wines there, the winery was started by Roederer of Cristal, and they pulled out. Unfortunately, they pulled out too soon because now it's booming, of course. And I tell you, in Tasmania, Jansz, they make a devil of a wine.
Well, that sounds like perfect to go with the oysters.
No, I mean the Jansz wines are just extraordinary. So there's everything in Australia and the stickies. Oh my God, they're called the dessert wines. The Sauternes and what they call in Australia, they call them stickies. Really, if you like dessert wines, you like sweet wines, those are some of the most. They make mostly predominantly from Muscadel grapes. Unbelievable wines.
Warren, can we get those sweet wines here, or is that limited to Australia?
No. You can get pretty much everything here now. Yalumba produces some extraordinary muscats, as do a lot of the other wineries. The sparkling wines as well, quite dominant. In fact, Yalumba makes port. Australian ports are terrific as well. It's really, really good. But Yalumba makes a 50-year-old port, if you can believe it. They've been around since the 1800s, Yalumba.
How are the sparkling wines? Are they more like the champagne, or are they more like Prosecco's?
No, they're more of the champagne style wines. The Jansz wines, a blind taste test, you'd swear that they came right out of Champagne. They're making rosés. They're making Blanc de Noir, and they're also making Blanc de Blancs, the 100% Chardonnay. They're using the same grape varieties, Pinot and Chardonnay, to make those. And the wines are just extraordinary. I mean, all the Australia, the Rieslings, as I said, the Viogniers, The Chardonnay are terrific. I actually think that the Margaret River Chardonnays are not just world class for Australia, but they're comparable to some of the best wines in the world. I mean, I would be hard pressed to find a California Chardonnay or even a French Chardonnay of comparable quality for this one for under $50, which is what this one sells for.
How do the Australian wines compare price-wise to the California wines? I mean, obviously you said they're less than the French wines, but how do they compare to California?
Well, like the Holiday Inn compares to that resort Paul showed us.
No, I meant price-wise.
That's right. Well, Holiday Inn doesn't cost what that luxury resort costs. They're much less expensive.
Oh, okay.
Much less expensive. Now, there are exceptions, of course. There are some very, very expensive Australian wines, but those are the very limited collectible ones that have become world famous over decades, like Penfolds Grange. But as a general rule, you can spend anywhere from $25 to $30 and get an extraordinary wine. And if you go up to this next tier, like with these Vassar Felix wines, in the $45 to $55 range, you get just tremendous wines. And like at the next level up in that Heytesbury category, for example, for $75, you get a wine that would cost you $200 out of Burgundy and $175 out of California. So I'd say a third to 50% of the cost for comparable quality wine.
Wow.
Yeah, and if I can jump in there, I think that's important to note that when you folks come to Australia, you get a really big dividend in terms of exchange rate. So $1 is buying about $1.55 or $1.60 Australian. So,
Wow.
whether it's for travel or whether it's for wine, when you're, knocking a third of the price off because you're buying in US dollars, it's, you get to have some really nice experiences here for a good price.
And you don't even have to ship it back because you can just order it from Warren when you get home.
Yeah, it's very expensive to ship wine home from Australia, whereas the deal here, well, you got these wines shipped to your door.
Yeah. Okay, anybody specific questions? Ginger, I saw a few comments that you had about the Chardonnay and the Cabernet in the same area. Anybody else? Anybody just kind of jump on in, unmute yourself, and Warren's here. This is the time to ask.
Warren, could you tell the sparkling wine that you mentioned it's from Tasmania?
Yeah, Jansz, Jansz. Those
Okay.
wines are just fantastic. So, champagne, even mediocre champagne is going to cost you $40 to $50 a bottle, even if you bought it at Costco. Whereas the Jansz wines are $25, $30, and they're as good as that next tier level of champagnes.
Do you carry those?
Yes,
Oh, awesome.
yes, absolutely.
So yeah, Warren, I thought it was really interesting. And by the way, you don't have to do the really complicated lamb recipe. Just get some lollipop chops and sear them. It takes a couple minutes, and I put mine on a bed of spinach, and they're really good. Along with my scallops, which were even better with the Chardonnay.
Ginger, you're going to be our honorary chef. This recipe got sent from the restaurant at the winery. I think it's a little, Michelin star-ish.
It was like, when I saw, hang for like 3 days, I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah, and go run out and get squid ink at your local Safeway.
Yeah, right. But I will tell you that, with the white, it's amazing. The scallops I did a little cauliflower potato puree and a little browned butter, and then the scallops. And I love the Chard I hate Chardonnay usually, but it had the body that you're looking for without being like overwhelmingly oaky or anything, but it had really great mouthfeel. But I was very curious because usually Chardonnay and Pinot go together, and like, with Cab, you get the Bordeaux, which is Sauv Blanc or Semillon. So what is it about either the soil or the climate that makes Chardonnay and Cab work? Because those are really different microclimates.
Well, I don't think it's you get a couple of characteristics. I mean, the soil there is distinct and unique. I mean, Chardonnay is pretty resilient. It'll grow in a lot of places. I mean, Sonoma is more popular for Chardonnay, but there's plenty of Chardonnay in Napa, for example. So when Ginger, you say, it's funny you said it, because I had this conversation with someone just on Saturday night who said, oh, I don't like Chardonnay. And I said, yes, you do. He says, no, I don't. I said, yes, you do. And I said, how you like Chablis? Oh yeah, Chablis is good. I said, well, that's 100% Chardonnay. So what you're saying is there's a particular style of Chardonnay that you don't like. So
Yes.
particularly in the United States today, we've reached this very commercial style of Chardonnay that is very oaky and buttery.
Rombauer.
In fact, at Whole Foods, they sell this wine called Butter. I mean,
Butter.
we don't even pretend. It's called Butter. And they use wood chips and stuff to get that huge oakiness. And it's just, they're mostly manipulated wines. Mayomi's doing it with Pinot Noir and stuff like that, which is opaque like this. If you can't see your fingers through Pinot Noir, it's a manipulated wine because it's supposed to be light and delicate. So what's different about this one and why it works, they've got this essence of terroir, so the soil is conducive to it. They're obviously growing the Chardonnay in different soils from the cab, probably less, probably more gravelly types of soils. And it's the vinification as well. So they're putting it, I think it's in steel for 9 months on the lees with the skins and everything, and they pump it down the batonnage. And then they put it in oak, but not new oak, mostly used oak.
Yeah.
For a period of time. So you get that hint. What the wood does is give you that creamy mouthfeel that we like so much in Meursault. And that's what you're sensing with this wine. But again, the very cool nights there is what's giving it that bite of acid and stuff like that. So you get the intensity of fruit, but you get the linearity of expression of terroir, like in Chablis, which, is so that the soil in Chablis has got hardly any clay at all. It's almost like wet slate, that calcium type soil, and that's what I think
limestone.
you're getting this wine.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different Chardonnays. In fact, one of my favorite Chardonnays in the whole world comes from Mendoza, in Argentina. It's from Catena Zapata, and it's the winery's at 5,800 feet, and they never thought they could get the grapes to ripen. And this wine, volcanic soils up there, and there's the soil, the terroir there gives the wine an essence. It smells like mint and tastes like cotton candy, in a good way.
That sounds pretty weird, but
no, I mean, you just smell it. And it's like this wine's got a bit of a peppermint context to it, but it's one of the greatest wines you'll ever have. So Chardonnay is a very versatile grape and takes the expression of the soil, which is what I think you're obviously liking, the Margaret River soils and the cold Antarctic breezes at night that are helping the wines get that great acid.
So hey, Warren, I was looking at some of this, and I looked up the vineyard here, and they've got some Cabernet bottles that look exactly like this that sell for like $200 a bottle. So, what would be the difference? Because this tastes really good.
You mean the Vassar Felix Tom Cullity you're looking at, probably?
It had this. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, like with any winery, they have different categories of wine. So Vassar Felix have a Cabernet Chardonnay in their line called Filius, and that's more of an entry level. So what gives wine its characteristics is a combination of the soil in which the grapes are grown, the microclimate that affects how the wines are developed, and then vinification, how the wine is made. So different vineyards have different quality soils, and as a consequence, create different quality wines. If the soils are more gravelly and less clay and less moisture in them, the wine has to fight intensely to get water, which is why Burgundy is so great, because the intense flavor of every water droplet that comes up with the roots that gets into the grape gives it great robust intensity. And then how the wine is made, if you put it in oak for a longer period of time, if you leave it on the lees for very long, it depends how much alcohol you cultivate in it based on when you pick the fruit and residual sugar and things like that, change the flavor profile of the wine. And generally the best grapes from the best vineyards go into, in this case, that Tom Cullity. They only produced the Tom Cullity, if I remember correctly, in the 80s. The inaugural vintage of Tom Cullity was 2014, I think. That was the first time they produced that wine. it took them those 30 years to get to get the vines to mature to the point where they could produce the kind of grapes that would warrant $165 bottle of wine. Because when you plant a vine, it takes years and years. You know, old vines, Vevine in France, you know, Viñas Velas in Spain. The older the vines, generally speaking, the better the quality of the fruit. And then it's in oak. It's you know, more expensive oak, different oak has an impact. You can get you know, French oak is very expensive. And Austrian, you know, a lot of wines use Austrian and Slovenian oak, and it's not as expensive as some of the best oak from the Limoges forest. How long you toast, in other words, they burn the inside of the wines. I know a winemaker in Burgundy who not only goes into the forest with his cooper to pick the tree from which he wants the barrels made, but then he inspects each individual stave for the barrel. And then he stands over the cooper with a stopwatch while he toasts the inside of the barrel, because you have to light them on fire. They burn the inside of the barrel. So 1 minute, 30 seconds for the Merceau, and it's 2 minutes this for that. And that has a significant impact on, you know, on the wine. And then how long it is aged. The Tom Callady, this Vasa Felix is aged, you know, the average vine here is 10 to 51 years old. I think the Tom Callady is a minimum of 40 years old vines, and I'm trying to, I don't remember exactly how long it stays. It's 11 to 31 days on the skin, 18 months before bottling, and the Tom Callady may go 36 months before bottling. And it's the difference between, you know, Brunello, Montalcino, and Riserva in Italy, and that's what allows that wine to be so extraordinary. So if you like this, the Tom Callady is twice the wine. From the same winery, same winemaker, you know, similar locations, but those aspects of harvesting and winemaking is what enables them to produce, you know, those really, really high quality wines.
Yeah. Well, it's very good. Cheers.
So Ginger, what else did you make tonight besides the lamb chops and the scallops?
That was it. I mean, that was plenty. I actually have a real job, so I was working all day and then like starting about 2, you know, doing a little prep stuff. But yeah. I'll tell you, the scallops and the Chardonnay were a complete hit. But lamb is right on with the red. But
Ginger, this is Joan. Could you share that scallops recipe or where you found it?
You know, I just made it up, but I'll tell you, you just put the scallops with, you do dry aged scallops, and you sprinkle a little salt and pepper on them, put a little oil in the pan, get it as hot as you can, sear them for 2 minutes on the first side and 1 minute on the second side, take them out. Turn the heat down, put in a couple tablespoons of butter, because of course that's really good, and some shallots. And then when the butter is brown, drop in some capers, put your scallops back in, and just coat them with the brown butter. And then over to the side, I just made a cauliflower potato mash with lots of butter. So.
Hi everyone. We had a total blackout. I don't know what happened where I am, but thank goodness for cell phones. So here I am back on with the cell phone. So nice to hear that you guys were doing okay.
I see a really good question about fires and tourism and the wine industry that would be really great to have answered.
Sure. I was just in the middle of typing one, but I'll throw that out. So in terms of the bushfires, yes, of course, they were front page news, I think, right up until coronavirus hit, and have been forgotten since then. But we did have some pretty serious impacts with the fires over the summer. I've said to a few people, and was saying to Sandy yesterday, one of the interesting things is that following the bushfires and once this coronavirus thing kicked off, we had in most parts of Australia one of our wettest Februaries on record. In fact, there were floods, and around my house, trees falling down because there was so much rain that the roots literally tipped up and they fell over. So Australia is an interesting destination, much like California, where bushfires have been happening for many thousands of years. Certainly during the Western period with the British here, there's records going back to the 1800s of big fires taking place. But absolutely, with our Indigenous people who've lived here for 50,000 years, we know that they actually practiced setting fires to regenerate the land and regenerate nature. And there's in fact some trees here that will only regenerate when there's a bushfire. The seeds are kept in these little pods, and they have to be exposed to the extreme heat of a bushfire before the pods will open and the seeds get spread and they start to grow. So just now you can drive through many of the areas that were affected only 4 or 5 months ago by fires and see already huge regrowth and green shoots everywhere. And you know, it's just the cycle that we go through. So it certainly shouldn't be something that should put people off from coming here. In fact, the areas that were most devastated were places like Kangaroo Island that I see someone's just mentioned. And even there's incredible wildlife experiences to be had, because a lot of the land was damaged by fires, but it means that now, one, you can see the animals better because there's less places for them to hide in terms of trees that have been burnt down. But two, they're having to travel a bit further to find food. So people who are going there now are actually seeing, you know, incredible wildlife really up close and personal. In terms of wineries, there wasn't a huge impact in most places, but there were a couple of wineries actually in South Australia, in and around the Barossa Valley and the Clare Valley, which is more of a white wine making region near to there, that were actually very seriously damaged, and the grapevines were ruined and destroyed from the fires. But look, it shouldn't stop you coming, and hopefully what it will motivate you to do is to come and support those businesses that really are, you know, and have been impacted by both fires and then this close down with coronavirus.
You know, one thing I'd want to mention, and I think I saw it in the text, and a couple of people, I think, Ginger, you mentioned it, Joan, you commented on it too. You know, it's interesting. Because I'm, you know, getting old now and can't really keep my mind straight, but I forgot to put the wine in the fridge this morning. So I only put it in at around 4 o'clock. So when I took it out of the fridge earlier, it wasn't really refrigerator cold. It was probably more around 60 degrees, not 48. And I agree wholeheartedly with what Ginger posted here, that most people drink white wines too cold and red wines too warm. Mm-hmm. You're much better off allowing the flavors to come through. So if you've been keeping your white wine on the ice, pour some in the glass, let it come to a little bit of a warmer temperature, and try it, because the cold from the refrigerator will suppress a lot of the flavor profile.
Right.
And on the red wine, sometimes if it gets too warm, even at room temperature, it just isn't quite as pleasant to drink as if it's a little cooler. It's not as much of a problem with Cabernet Sauvignon, but Pinot Noir particularly can benefit from a hint of chill to it. I've actually had sommeliers in restaurants look at me crazy when they bring a bottle of red wine to the table and I ask them to put it in an ice bucket for 5 minutes. But you shouldn't be shy about experimenting with drinking your white wines a little warmer and your red wines a little cooler, until you find just the right flavor profile that's expressed in the wine at the proper temperature.
And Warren, I'm drinking my Chardonnay from a Pinot Noir glass, which is actually a good choice for New World Chardonnay. So I don't know, I didn't actually test it in a white wine glass, but I once got to go to a Riedel tasting, which was incredible. If you ever get a chance to do it, folks, you get to taste like the right wine in a bad glass, like the one with a rolled rim that's really crummy, and even the right wine in a good crystal glass, but the wrong shape. Mm-hmm. And Pinot and Chardonnay in particular are really sensitive to the kind of glass that you use. Syrah and Cabs and Merlots are a little more forgiving. But the New World Chardonnays tend to benefit from the bigger bowl that you would think of as a Pinot Noir glass. But anyway,
Well,
I'm
in
curious
fact,
more about it.
what you're holding there, Ginger, is a white Burgundy glass as much as a Pinot glass. So if you go to Burgundy, they have those for the white wines. For the white wine, they drink it in that bowl. What's also interesting, and I agree with the Riedel stuff, is although I think they've jumped the shark a little bit when they started making Riedel Coca-Cola glasses. That was a little bit of past it for me. But now Janssens, Robinson, and others, they're making a universal glass that works with all wines, and I find that that's a very, very good way to go now. It's a glass very similar to this one. It works for pretty much all varietals.
I'm going to jump in here because we're at the hour, and I know that some people have other commitments. So if you need to leave, please feel free. Our feelings won't be hurt. We loved having you. This was the end of our series of 3 destinations. Some people have talked about, us wanting to continue. I'm going to send an email and get a feeling for how many people would like for Warren and I to continue these tastings. And we'll based on, the interest, we'll come up with this. But please feel free to stay. Warren and Paul and I will hang out a little bit longer if you need to leave. We love you. Goodbye. Thank you. Sorry for the blackout, but thank God for technology and cell phones, and I didn't have to totally lose all of you. So love you all. Stay on for a little while longer, and if not, see you next time.
Great job, Sandy.
Thank you, Lisa.
So much fun. It was fun meeting all your friends too.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah,
Lots of
excellent
fun.
job. Once you get Warren started talking.
Thank
you
you,
learn so
Sandy.
much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Great.
Night.
Thanks, everyone.
Sandy, when are we traveling? Where are we going to go?
Well, interesting that you should mention that, because I've been thinking that maybe we could get a group of wine people together and we could get Warren to go with us, and we can pick a destination and we can have a fabulous time. So stay tuned. I think this is really a great opportunity. Obviously, we need to wait till things open up a little bit more and we all feel comfortable in traveling. But I'm planting the seed that maybe we have a little wine group could happen, and we'll entice Warren to come with us.
I'm comfortable. I'm ready to go.
I'm with you. I'm ready to go.
Me too. I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it.
It's okay to do.
All right,
It's okay to do 25 people.
All right.
At my house.
All right, that sounds great, Ginger. I'm taking you
I
up.
have a big paella pan. I've got a huge backyard. Just bring on the Spanish wines and we'll cook up a storm.
All right.
I would like
Warren
to
and I will-
suggest that I would like to suggest that if anybody would like to come out to the Livermore Valley, where I live, that we could actually taste locally.
All right. Well, these are all great ideas. I'm going to send out in the thank you email for, all of you. I love you all so much. This has been so wonderful. And it'll be an opportunity to make suggestions like this, Jamie and Ginger and everyone else. And we can look at, traveling to other places virtually until we can travel for real. And then if there's a group of us that are really into this and really enjoying it, why not take it on the road for real? So lots of opportunities in the future. And for the Scotch lovers like me, or the tequila lovers, maybe we'll throw a couple little things in there too. So again, thank you all. This has been so much fun for me and so wonderful. And I hope you've enjoyed it as much as Warren and I have.
Absolutely.
And now you know you're a great purveyor of wonderful wine. So, you don't even have to worry. Just, email Warren, go to his website. You can order fabulous wines. You'll have he's white glove service, just like we are. And, you can have a fabulous wine and travel experience. So again, thank you all for coming. It's been so fabulous. Warren and I have loved it. And, if you want to hang out a little bit more, we're here. If you have to say goodbye, bye. We're happy. And Warren, anything you want to say?
No, I love the idea. In fact, you don't have to twist my arm to
Yeah, I know.
And,
You and Connie have your bags packed. I know that.
but I think there is a huge advantage to, you know, when I go and visit these wineries, it's a little different from the regular tourist stuff, because obviously they don't just see someone coming in to visit and taste some wine and maybe buy a bottle to take out to the restaurant that evening. They see a potential for a relationship to sell wine to lots and lots of people. So, you know, it's about access and really special opportunities that wouldn't otherwise be, you know, available even in a regular tour group. So yeah, I'd happily, you know, want to do that. And this is, you know, I don't know where most people are located. If I remember correctly, the majority of you are here in California. So I mean, we can certainly start up in Northern California as an excursion.
North Carolina.
Yeah, well, I'll be.
They can do Napa and Sonoma on their own. We're talking international wineries. I mean, the international destination. That's where we're going to go, because
I know we're all planning our trips to go overseas later. I'm talking about going to like on Saturday. But,
okay, yeah, hey, all right, that's good. That's good. I'm in.
I'm happy. Look, I can't. I'm going to think about getting a spirits license. Right now, I can't sell Scotch. But last year in May, I was in Scotland with a buddy playing golf, and we spent a few days in Islay drinking all those single malt Scotches.
Oh, I love Highland Scotches.
Laphroaig and Lagavulin and Ardbeg and Bruichladdich.
Very peaty, like drinking the dirt.
No, I like that. I like that kind of stuff. Dark and smoky.
Go to Chile.
Personality.
Hey, well, maybe in the next kind of round of wine tastings, Ginger, we'll do Chile.
Yeah.
But, let's get to the place when these countries open up and when they're safe and when we can, you know, really enjoy it. I mean, we don't want to go there with masks and, you know, 6 feet apart.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to get on a plane yet, so.
When it's all open and safe and do it, let's do it. I think this is a great group. Everybody's been having a wonderful time. Warren is, I mean, charming and wonderful. Can you imagine traveling with him to these places and getting these, you know, up close and personal experiences that you would never be able to have? I don't care who you travel with. So this could be really fun. So maybe we're talking at 2022, but you know, hey, we got lots of travel ahead of us, so no worries. And in the meantime, we can do this virtually and, you know, create these wonderful relationships with each other, enjoy fabulous wines together. And then when it's ready, we'll take this show on the road.
Yeah. In the meantime, we'll just practice by drinking more wine. But
oh, tough, Warren, tough.
This is great. Thank you. Good seeing everybody again.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. We'll follow up and we'll listen to all your good ideas and we'll synthesize it and we'll come up with a chapter 2. So anyway, good night, everyone. Take care. Stay healthy.
Good job.
Bye.
Wonderful.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye-bye.